Hello, everyone. It's 5:30, and we'd like to call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Natrona County Planning and Zoning Commission to order here at 5:30 p.m. First, for introductions, my name's Hal Hutchinson. I'm the chairman. We have on my far left Commission member Matt Mitchell. On my immediate left, Commissioner Chad Zeal. On my right, Commissioner Robert Grant. And Jason Gutierrez, another commissioner, has called in that he would not be available this evening. Also, I'd like to introduce Trish Chavis, the planner here at the far end. And we have Eric Nelson, the county attorney, is here as well, seated to my right. So the commission is an advisory board from the Natrona County Commissioners. Our decisions are subject to approval, conditional approval, denial, or modification by the Board of County Commissioners. For each application on the agenda, we will hold an official public hearing. The hearings are recorded and there will be written minutes of the meeting. After the commission holds a public hearing, unless an application is tabled or withdrawn, the Board of County Commissioners will hold another public hearing for the application. Tonight, everyone will have an opportunity to address the commission. First, those in favor of the application may address the commission. Then those opposed may address us. And then finally, the applicant may give a brief rebuttal. When the chair recognizes you, please come to the podium and clearly state your name and address before giving your comments. And this is a forum for public, this is not a forum for public outcry or speaking from the audience. You must be recognized by the chair before addressing the commission. And if a person's conduct is out of order, the chair may give a person a warning. If the person continues to conduct the conduct, or if the conduct is extremely out of order, the person may be directed to leave immediately. So with that, we'll get started, but first, if you'd please rise and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So a little bit more reading here just to get everything on the up and up as we get started. Items on the agenda are subject to a second public hearing before the Board of County Commissioners for final action. Recommendations by the Planning Commission on items from this agenda may be considered by the Board of County Commissioners at their meeting on August 3rd, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. And I will make a special note that our first item is actually going to be considered next week at the July 20th, 2021 Board of County Commissioners, and that is for the Mountain Acres Subdivision, the first item on our agenda here tonight. So Mountain Acres is July 20th, and everything else is August 3rd. Does that make sense?
Mr. Chairman, one correction, if I might. The regularly scheduled meeting on the 20th has been moved to the 19th. The Board of County Commissioners are required to adopt their annual budget by the 19th, so they have moved that meeting up one day, so it will be Monday, the 19th, not the Tuesday of the 20th.
I can note that myself right now before I forget. What time is that meeting? 5:30? Yes. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. All right. Our next order of business is approval of the June 8th, 2021 meeting minutes. Chair would entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
I'll second the motion.
Moved by Commission Member Mitchell and seconded by Commissioner Zeal. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Trish, I didn't get those to sign yet, so I'm assuming you have them. Okay. All right. Next on the agenda is consideration of PS 21-002, and that is consideration of approval of a plat of 7 lots to be known as Mountain Acres Subdivision. And again, this is the item that's to be heard at the July 19th BOCC meeting. Before we get started, so this will be the third time the Planning and Zoning Commission has taken up the Mountain Acres subdivision. And so a couple things. Number one, the second time last month, we had the meeting and we had an absolute packed house, a room full of people. And decision was made beforehand to limit the input from everyone so that we could get out of here in a decent time. And still, it was 10:15, I think, before we got out of here. So the Mountain Acres owner's attorney, Mr. Keith Nakbar, called me the next day and reminded me, and I wanted to make a statement here, that in making the presentation for his project, he needed more time than 3 minutes. And I agree. That was my screw up. So today he's going to get the time that he needs to make his presentation. And then also, we kind of skimmed over a rebuttal period. So thank you, Mr. Nakbar, for that call a few weeks ago, and we'll make it right here today. All right, so with that, and then one other thing. Now that we've heard this for the third time, the audience doesn't look as numerous as it has in the past, but everyone here has heard these things 2 or 3 times. So if you have anything new, or if you want to emphasize something old, please be brief. If you have anything new, take your time. I think we got enough people here today. We can not set a time limit, but be reasonable, please. And again, we don't need to reiterate what we talked about before. So with that, could we have a staff report, please, Trish?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So this is a request by Camille Lamont for Mountain Acres Major Subdivision. This is located on Casper Mountain in between Ktwo Road and Archery Range Road, and the parcel and all surrounding parcels are zoned Mountain Residential 2. This is an overlay of the subdivision with an aerial underneath showing where the lot lines are going to be and where those new lots are proposed to be. There's some background in here. Chairman Hutchison explained it very well, that this has been before the Planning Commission, it's been before the Board of County Commissioners, it's back for review and motion tonight. So the criteria for approval, we get into, is it consistent with the development plan and the zoning resolution? Staff proposes that the subdivision generally complies with the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan. The lots are going to be low-density residential, which is the same as the adjacent land around it, and that the health standards for sewage and water quality have been met. The subdivision is in conformance with the general provisions and the subdivision design standards. The subdivision has been processed in accordance with the applicable general provisions and subdivision design standards. An exception has been applied for to address Jackson Canyon Road, where that realignment is going to go through Lot 5. The applicant has also applied for an exception on Lot 7, which was part of some of the concerns from last meeting, so that has been applied for. Has the applicant provided evidence that a sufficient water supply system and sewage disposal system will comply with state and local laws and regulations? Again, this has been through the entire Chapter 23 study, which is been submitted to DEQ, and they did provide a non-adverse recommendation. Necessary services available to serve the proposed subdivision. The applicant has met with the Casper Mountain Fire District on a couple of different occasions and walked the property. The Casper Mountain Fire Department has also submitted a letter that there are no further concerns. Does the subdivision appear to be compatible with the surrounding area? Again, the subdivision is zoned Mountain Residential 2. It will be compliant with the adjacent neighbors. There's no additional uses that are being permitted. And the applicant will be relocating Jackson Canyon Road to a safer, more accessible location. This relocation will connect Ktwo Road to Archery Range Road, and that is including both of the exceptions for Lot 5 and Lot 7. I put this slide in here, which is new. I didn't have this in the previous PowerPoint, but these are snips that I took out of the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan, and I just wanted to show in the land use implementation that was put in there that it recommends specific changes to the zoning, subdivision, and design review process to implement the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan. And again, that's just really showing that it's a recommendation. Page 36 of the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan gets into that plan implementation process again, and I highlighted the area. The plan should also be used as a guide. So just reiterating that the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan, it's a guide. It's not stating specific regulations like our zoning resolution does. It's to guide us in the changes. The last one is another paragraph from page 36, and at the bottom, I highlighted that a balanced application of the resolution is the responsibility of the Planning Commission and the County Board of County Commissioners. And so between the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan and its recommendations and then the regulations that are in the subdivision regulations and the zoning resolution, providing that balance in between. Public comment notifications were sent to 29 property owners. At the Planning Commission meeting, one written comment was received from a property owner, and then an additional comment was received on July 9th, which was last Friday. Comments from the previous subdivision application were in regards to a secondary ingress and egress, and the road not being dedicated to the public, Casper Mountain Fire Department review, and concerns with Jackson Canyon Road and whether it was a county road. So we've been working our way through those, and we've come to that point now. The proposed motion, staff would propose a motion and vote to recommend approval of the subdivision and the requested exceptions, and that's an exception to Lot 5 and an exception to Lot 7 for the realignment of Jackson Canyon Road, and also include the findings of fact that are in the staff report and the PowerPoint tonight. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
So I just have a question then. So if you look at the major subdivision, as far as the improvement service districts, it seems like the major subdivision and the zoning says that you have to have an improvement service district, but then when you look at the Casper Mountain Plan, it's optional. So I guess what I'm trying to find out is if there's a discrepancy between the two guides, then which one legally should we go with?
Mr. Chairman, I think I can field that if you'd like.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Mitchell, there has been some discussion during the course of this application regarding kind of the legal status of the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan. And so I've done a bit of research, and I think this would be helpful, just a little bit of background. So in 2003, the Natrona County Commission put a moratorium on any new rezones, subdivisions, really development up on the mountain, and undertook the process of promulgating the 2004 Casper Mountain Land Use Plan. And it was adopted June 1st of 2004 as an amendment to, at the time, the 1998 Natrona County Land Use Plan. And that's been subsequently updated in 2016. And the Mountain Land Use Plan is referenced in that. And so the short answer is that it does not have the same legal status as zoning resolutions or subdivision regulations that are properly adopted. There's a case that came out in February of this year, Asphalt Specialties versus the Laramie County Planning Commission. In short, the Planning Commission there attempted to prohibit the development of some property based on the land use plan. They don't have zoning, and the Wyoming Supreme Court was very clear and is quoted as saying comprehensive plans, quote, lack the legal effect of zoning laws and cannot be equated with comprehensive zoning and legal significance. So because the 2004 Casper Mountain Land Use Plan is really an amendment to our county land use plan, it doesn't in and of itself have the force of law. And when you look back at the 2004 land use plan that was adopted in section, or actually chapter 6, it talks about the implementation of the recommendations. And there were 4 specific recommendations. One was the establishment of the MR1 zoning district. The second was the establishment of the MR2 zoning district. And then the establishment of 2 overlay districts, slope preservation and wildfire mitigation. And so those 4 things were adopted contemporaneously with the adoption of the 2004 land use plan. So I think it's the other items of the 2004 land use plan are really a guide. And if there is a conflict with the zoning resolution is going to trump it. And so in this case with the improvement in service district, I think the zoning resolution is clear that an improvement in service district is required. Although as a side note, I would say that as a county, we're going to be looking at that because it really hasn't achieved what we wanted to achieve, and that is road maintenance. But I think as it currently stands, it's still validly adopted and required by the zoning resolution.
Could I ask a follow-up question to that? So it would be something the commissioners would probably look for is that we include, if there is a move for approval, a condition that an improvement service district be formed unless deemed not necessary by the Board of County Commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, I think that would be an appropriate way to handle it, because at this time, I do see it as a legal requirement.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for staff? Thank you, Trish. All right, we're going to move on to the public hearing. This is to open the public hearing for consideration of the 7 lots to be known as Mountain Acre Subdivision, PS 21-002. All those wishing to speak in favor, please come forward and give your name and address.
Would it be all right if I have, this is Keith Nackbar on behalf of the applicant. I'd like John Bryson, who's our technical project manager, to join me in case I have any technical questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's fine. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Nackbar, hello.
Thank you.
Thank you for the call again.
Sure. I'm Keith Nackbar, attorney at law, 123 West 1st Street, Suite 205, Casper, Wyoming, 82601. I am the attorney for the applicant for this proposed subdivision, Mountain Acres Subdivision. Looking at the reason that this application was tabled last time it was before you, based on the minutes that have now been approved from the June 8th meeting, I've identified 3 issues that I would like to address, and I'm not going to start at ground zero. I'm just going to try to stick with the issues that I think are pertinent to your ultimate decision here. Those 3 issues that appear to be what was the hang-up last time was, number 1, an access issue with the north portion. Number 2, the access to Lot 7 over KTWO Road. And number 3, the public dedication of roads. And I think there we were talking about the road that connects Lot 3 and then goes through Lot 2 and cul-de-sacs on Lot 1. So I'm going to address those in reverse order. The public dedication of roads, and again, I think there Trish, would you be able to put up the plat, the actual plat? I can help you with which exhibit that is. It is Exhibit A2. While she's doing that, I don't think there's any concern regarding dedication of the roads in the subdivision, except for this one. The Jackson Canyon reroute, or the Jackson Canyon Road reroute, no problem there. That certainly should be dedicated to the public. The KTWO Road portion that just goes through a little tiny piece of Lot 7 there on the east side, no problem there. I think that dedication of those particular roads will clear up what might be viewed as uncertainties with regard to those roads, at least as far as the legal records go. The issue that we have resisted a bit is the dedication of the road. If you look at the left-hand side, the left boundary there, it's this one right over here. Yeah, I've tried that before. This road right here that goes up and has a circle up at the end on Lot 1. It's our belief that this is really, thank you, this is really a cul-de-sac, and there is really no need, there's no purpose in dedicating this to the public. As you know, and I think residents of the mountain would agree, that privacy on the mountain is very highly valued. And we're not really in favor of opening up this road, which really leads to nowhere other than to Lot 1, to the public. We don't really see that that is essential. This road is not really a subdivision road, so to speak. It is more of a cul-de-sac. It's an access for Lot 1 and Lot 2. If you think about somebody, if that's dedicated to the public, somebody could go up there and drive into the cul-de-sac on Lot 1 and sit there, and there wouldn't be a darn thing that the owner of Lot 1 could do about it. And that's really not a very favorable situation. On the other hand, if it's an access easement, the owner of Lot 1 could say, hey, do you have business here? If not, I'd appreciate you moving on and out of my property. And that's kind of the point that we're trying to make there. We view that as an easement, an access easement, a driveway, or a cul-de-sac. Now, let me talk about the distinction or the perhaps conflict between the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan and the regulations. The Casper Mountain Land Use Plan, as was just explained by Mr. Nelson, is a policy statement. It's a policy statement. It is not a regulation. The Casper Mountain Land Use Plan is the document that says something to the effect of all subdivision roads will be dedicated to the public. The regulations, which do have the force and effect of law, aren't that definitive. They aren't that specific. I'm looking at Section 9 of Chapter 1 of the Natrona County Subdivision Regulations, 2013, and it says this: the applicant may be required to develop and dedicate to the public a road or easement if the road would be a logical extension of an existing public road. It also says in Chapter 7, Subdivision Design Standards, Section 3, Paragraph 3, local roads shall be laid out to discourage excessive through traffic. So I think the regulations are much more vague and give you and the Board of County Commissioners much more leeway in determining whether it is appropriate to require the dedication of a road such as this short road that goes across one lot and cul-de-sacs or ends on another lot, whether it's really essential to make that a dedication of as a public road. Furthermore, the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan, as a policy statement, also talks about minimizing the effect of subdivision on natural resources. And I would submit to you that building a road that is, as shown there, 50 feet wide to serve one or two residences as a publicly dedicated road really doesn't promote the idea of minimizing the effect on natural resources. You know, if I live on the mountain and I have a driveway, I'm not going to want to cut down a whole bunch of trees to make a 50-foot wide road to serve my one house or two houses. On the other hand, if that is just dedicated as an easement and all I need is a driveway, I can drive between a 12-foot span of trees without any problem and keep the privacy that everyone so desires on the mountain. So now, having said all of that, if you insist on requiring the dedication of that road to the public, we will go along with it. We will ask the Board of County Commissioners to grant us that exception or that leeway to use their discretion to not require that. But we're not going to die on that hill. We want to encourage you not to require that in this particular situation. But if you deem that essential, if you deem that we have to dedicate that road, then we will comply. The next issue is the issue of access to Lot 7 on KTWO Road. This was an issue that was brought up kind of at the last minute, at the last meeting on June 8th in this matter. The argument goes, you can see we have KTWO Road there on the right-hand side on the east edge of the subdivision. There's a small stretch of KTWO Road that crosses Lot 7. That also, according to our proposal, provides the access for Lot 7. There's no other access immediately available under our proposal to Lot 7. And so the concern that was raised was, wait a minute, KTWO Road is not a county road and it might not be secure access. Well, I would submit to you that KTWO Road is a long-established road. It is a very populous, or a very frequently, I should say, used road on the mountain. I think we counted more than 10 properties rely on this stretch of KTWO Road for their access. I think it's fair, I don't have specific information to tell you, but I think it's fair to assume that title insurers have looked at that issue and determined whether KTWO Road is a reasonable, reliable, legal access for those properties. And I would say it would be safe to conclude that some title examiners along the way have determined that that's legal access that is satisfactory to them. Furthermore, I'm not aware of any instance where KTWO Road has been blocked or threatened to be blocked. It is my understanding that the county, Natrona County plows KTWO Road up to the first radio tower on a regular basis. I think people park at that radio tower. They plow out a parking lot and people park there to recreate in the winter. I think the radio tower, the people that maintain that radio tower rely on KTWO Road to access their radio tower equipment for maintenance purposes. And if you compare the reliability of the access of KTWO Road with that of Jackson Canyon Road, I think that KTWO Road, at least in this area and north up to Hogadon Road, is a much more well-established road than what Jackson Canyon Road was, frankly, across the subject property, which really was nothing more than a power line trail. And KTWO Road is a regularly established and regularly used road. You know, this strikes me kind of like saying that we can't rely on Highway 2026 west of Casper because there might be some title defect somewhere along the way. I mean, that's just not how we do business. There are all sorts of title and record problems with properties and roads all around the West. We don't say, well, there might be a problem, so therefore we're not going to allow any development to rely on those roads. So we think it's a non-issue. Certainly if KTWO Road was blocked by someone I would expect there would be multiple lawsuits filed the next day to ensure access. And so I don't think it's very realistic to suggest that KTWO Road is not a reliable access for Lot 7. I know that, I did a little bit of research, I know that in 1938 there was a dedication of the northernmost part of the road to Natrona County. That's up where Mr. Bale and Coffey, at least at the time that I looked, were the owners of that land where that road is dedicated. It was part of a mining claim. I think it was mining claim number 6. I note that the Reed Major Subdivision, which this commission approved at some point, labels it as a county road. The Board of County Commissioners also had to approve that subdivision. It also dedicates, the Reed Major Subdivision also dedicates a portion of KTWO Road. Even so, even having said all of that, I have in my file, in my hands, ready for recording, grants of right-of-way to the public from both Gary Lever and from Mrs. Reed and Miss Nelson to the public, and that takes care of any issue that someone could raise regarding where KTWO Road crosses the Lever property, or I guess it's the former Lever property, and where KTWO Road crosses the Reed or Nelson property. Those were obtained in furtherance of our effort to get this subdivision approved, and they will be recorded with the County Land Office upon approval of this subdivision by the Board of County Commissioners. And I think that that actually offers some benefit to the county, because if that's the case, then we have cleared up any question regarding KTWO Road's legitimacy on Lot 7, so that will be dedicated to the public. We also will have the portion that goes over the Lever property, which is a little bit further north, and also the portion that goes across the Reed property. Those will be clear, in the record, legally enforceable access for the public. Finally, in the issues raised, or I guess justifying the tabling of this matter, was a question, and I don't have a lot of specificity on this one. The minutes simply say an access issue on the north portion. I believe what the concern there was on the north portion of the development. Tricia, yeah, if you could drop that down, that would be great. Thank you. I believe the concern was whether there would be sufficient access for fire suppression at the north end of this property. Now, you have in your packet an exhibit that shows the fire access that has been contemplated in this subdivision, and that I believe is exhibit. What's I thought it was A9. No. Yeah, let's see here. Yeah. A9 is, which I believe is in your packets, shows you fire access via Klein Drive at the north end of Lot 1. Now, there was some issue raised, and I'll address this very briefly. There was some issue raised regarding shouldn't that road, or shouldn't there be a connection with Klein Drive with this subdivision? And that's been an issue that has been raised. The problem with that is this subdivision does not have enough common line with Klein Drive to make a usable road. And that is shown on, I believe that's A6. Is that correct, John? Yep. Yeah, Exhibit A6 shows you that there's only 6.8 feet of common boundary line between this subdivision and Klein Drive. And so we can't, there's just no way to connect, yeah, there we go. There's no way to connect a road in this subdivision with Klein Drive because we don't have the width. Now, having said that, however, certainly, in the event of a fire, there is sufficient access. You can drive down Klein Drive and you could drive a big fire truck right down into this property in the event that there was a fire and they needed to gain access. So because of that 6'8" width, we can't put a road in there that connects to Klein Drive. But that doesn't mean that you couldn't drive a fire truck down into the subdivision on Klein Drive and access Lot 1 and go on into Lot 2. Furthermore, I think it's important to note that the fire chief who evaluated this, who is the expert on this subject matter, who we rely on and I hope you rely on, they have said, we don't see a problem here. We think we have sufficient access to fight fires in this subdivision should it be necessary. Furthermore, just touching on the loop road issue, we don't really see the need for a loop road. Connecting Klein Drive with either the road that we looked at earlier on Lot 3, 2, and 1 there, we just don't see that. And furthermore, the subdivision regulations at Chapter 7, Section 3, Paragraph 3, discourage the layout of roads that would encourage excessive through traffic. And I think that's really what would happen here. There's really no reason. You've got KTWO Road, you've got Jackson Canyon Road as a through road, and then you've got, I think it's Archery Range Road over on the west. That's sufficient way to get between those two roads. You don't also need to have a connection with Klein Drive going down and ultimately over to Archery Range Road. So we think that that loop would actually be contrary to what the regulations require. Okay, I'm going to touch on two final issues, and then I'm going to sit and entertain questions and sit down. I appreciate the time you've given me. The two final issues I wanted to address were, there was a question raised regarding Jorgensen's access, if you might recall. And I can tell you that we've done a fair amount of work on making sure that Jorgensen has adequate access. Jorgensen owns the property right there over to the east of the subdivision, and at some point was complaining that somehow we were going to cut Jorgensen off. One of the exhibits, I believe, let's see, remember which one that one was, John? The Jorgensen Access.
It's all on the set of B.
Set of B, the B exhibits, yeah. And I don't think you need to put those up, Trish, thank you. Yeah, B1, actually all the B exhibits, and including all the photographs, which I have larger copies of, show that Jorgensen's access really is, this was the claim. May I move a little closer?
Absolutely.
The initial claim was that Jorgensen was going to be blocked out because Jorgensen said they used this access to access their cabin. But I think we determined that their access to their cabin, which is over here, I'm sorry, am I blocking? Their access to their cabin, which is over here, is not really this. And this is a trespass route anyway. They have no easement. They have no permission to use this route. Their real access is up this way. And I think we have photographs. If you look at these photographs, R7, R9, R6, and R5, which are on the following pages here. Yeah, these show you Jorgensen's actual access. And I can leave this up here so if you want to look at the larger picture. Furthermore, I've talked to, I'll represent to you truthfully, that I've talked to Jorgensen's attorney twice in the last several weeks, and just today he indicated to me that Jorgensen's don't have an issue with this any longer. They are comfortable with their existing access over to a little further to the east. So I don't think access by Jorgensen is an issue any longer. I think that has been abandoned because their truthful access is over to the east, not down through the subdivision property, because that, of course, they have no right to go there. Finally, the issue that I'll address last is the splitting of lots 5 and 7 by the placement of roads on those lots. I know that the subdivision regulations generally prohibit splitting a lot in a subdivision with a road, but there are provisions in the regulation for an exception. Exceptions are allowed where not detrimental to the goals of, and I'll summarize, the applicable laws, the regulations, the development plan, so on and so forth. We are requesting an exception here for the reasons that we've placed in the record with the letters that we submitted, addressing Lot 5, the Platt, if you don't mind, Trish, thank you very much. Which is A2, if I'm not mistaken, yes. You can see, of course, the issue, just to remind you, thank you, is this, where it goes across and cuts off the corner of Lot 5, and that was raised last time. We believe that that route is the most preferable route because, for two reasons. One, it would allow us to route the road without destroying so much trees and natural landscape and habitat there. It is a less overgrown area where we're proposing the road. And again, the policy in Chapter 3 of the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan provides that minimizing, residential goal, high-quality future residential development designed to meet human needs and limit the impact on natural resources. So we believe that this route is more preferable because it will involve less cutting down of trees. Furthermore, we believe this route is preferable, as I put in my initial letter, because it's less of a slope and it's a little bit smoother terrain cutting over that way instead of going straight down the hill. Now, could it be done? It absolutely could be done. It'll involve, I believe, more deforestation. I think it'll involve a little bit rougher road for access and emergency vehicles to travel on Jackson Canyon Road. And as I said before, that is not an issue we want to cause this subdivision to be derailed because of. So if you require that we, as one of your findings of fact, if you require that we route Jackson Canyon Road straight down to that corner, which, by the way, also would to some extent make a more difficult road to travel on, because you got to go around a corner instead of cutting a little bit of a curve there. But if you require that we go straight to the corner and then turn right, we will accommodate that. We'll adjust the plat accordingly, but we'll ask the Board of County Commissioners to allow us to route it this way and leave it to their discretion. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I would like to please reserve some time for rebuttal to address any issues that might be brought up that I have not addressed in my case in chief.
Any questions for Mr. Nakbar?
So on that cul-de-sac, I mean, is there any, I guess, and this would be kind of with Trish, is there any reason to have it be publicly available, at least from a fire standpoint? If the fire department has signed off and the police have signed off on it, but the question to me, I think there's certain things about having turnarounds and then this, and I just want to make sure that the road can handle the, whatever potential fire issues there are there, and if there's any reason to make it 50 feet. I just don't know.
You're talking about Klein Drive?
No, not Klein Drive, that cul-de-sac.
Right. I follow you. Mr. Chairman, Commissioner,
Yes.
I guess if Trish wants to answer first, I'm fine with that.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Mitchell, there are regulations that specify how county roads, or how roads can be built on the mountain in particular. This subdivision does meet the minimum requirements. Without some sort of an approval or recommendation from the Board of County Commissioners, I think we would stick with that minimum requirement by the subdivision regulations.
And if I might add just a comment on that.
Absolutely.
One other alternative would be to require dedication of a public road up to the north boundary of Lot 2 and then stop it there. That's another option I was thinking about, because then you're only accessing one property. Now you do have a legitimate argument there with the turnaround. You need to have access to have a place where fire trucks could turn around. But I still don't think that alone justifies making it dedicated to the public, so.
One more question. So in the KTW road, you aren't making any material changes to it, right? That's what I kind of understand. You're not changing it, it's just going to be there.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Mitchell, we are not. We're asking you to approve it as drawn. I outlined in a letter that where I asked for the exception, a couple of other alternatives, neither of which we like. We have leave it as is and allow that road to split Lot 7, simply because I didn't lay this out. That was laid out when this land was parceled off many years ago. The other alternative would be to make KTWO Road follow that lot line, so it would be a jog over and then back down, which I don't think that would be very convenient for the public to add those bends in there. I think it would be more problematic than having a piece. I think we've calculated that little corner there is approximately was it a half acre? A little bit less than a half acre. So really that could be a place where somebody could put a shop to store snow removal equipment or whatever on their own property. So one option would be to route KTWO Road along the property line. That way you wouldn't be splitting Lot 7. Another option, which again we don't like, is making that little corner a part of the road. But then the problem becomes, now you've got a road with a little wart on it, and nobody can use that, but yet somebody needs to maintain it. And so then it kind of brings more questions than it does answers. So our proposal is to leave KTWO Road as is and to ask the Board of County Commissioners to grant that exception.
One last question. So as far as Jorgensen's Road, at least from the planning board, are there any issues with access to that property? Because it sounds like there isn't. I just want to make sure that has been kind of taken care of.
That is correct. The Jorgensens have had access through other means, and so from staff's point of view, there has not been an issue with access for Jorgensen.
Mr. Nightworth, those are just larger pictures of what we have in our packet. I
Correct.
believe, right?
And the pictures are at the very end. Sorry. Any other questions?
Questions from Mr. Nightbar? Thank you for the comprehensive presentation.
Thank you. And as I said, I would like to reserve some time for rebuttal. Thank you.
We've got you on the radar. Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in favor of the application, please come forward. One last time, anyone wishing to speak in favor? Seeing, okay, here we have one.
I guess I have more of a question than,
Name and address, please.
oh, I'm sorry, I've never done this before. Thad White, 6211 South Walnut, Casper, Wyoming, 82601.
Thank you.
The question I have, I own the property, it would be north of Lot 6 and 7, that little triangle there. Yep. And I have no issues with that road going down that way. I just recently purchased that property, and the way my cabins sit on that property, it's right on that property line. I mean, within feet. And so I am definitely opposed to a road going through 5 and 6. I have no issues whatsoever with that road going between 6 and 7. Or 5 and 6, I'm sorry.
Could you repeat that? I got lost.
Yeah, I said that wrong. This one's clear.
If you want to go up there, where you
Yeah.
can point better.
So this is my property, and originally, I understood that the road was going to be coming right along this property line. And I could be wrong. I have no issues with it coming this way, and I would be all for that. So I guess that's all I have to say.
Okay, all right.
I have no issues with it, and I would be in favor for that.
Questions for Mr. White?
Do you access your property via the K2 road then?
Yes.
Any more questions for Mr. White? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in opposition to the application, please come forward. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application, please come forward.
Tracy Lamont, 9855 Crimson Dawn Road. I have no problem with the subdivision, other than it needs to comply on it. I'm all for Mr. Lehman's 7 lots there. I deliberated amongst myself with Jackson Canyon Road, Jackson Canyon County Road shouldn't stay where it's at, and the subdivision worked around it. But I was one of the initial ones to propose to you guys that maybe it needs to be relined. So, and I suggested that to the commissioners to as well. So that's, we've all identified that it's a public road. Are we on the same page there, Rick? On it, our county road, that's good. We're going to get through all this, okay? On it, then, first of all, I didn't start out to offend Mr. Lehman here at all. Someone else did. I just, if I've got to play by the rules, everybody's got to play by the rules. My neighbors have had to play by the rules. So bear with me. I was going to read a prepared statement, but after hearing Mr. Nakbar's, it was an excellent presentation. I need to ask Mr. Nakbar one quick question. When was the last time you talked to Mr. Dennison?
I'm not sure who Mr. Dennison is.
That's the Jorgensen's attorney.
Oh, okay, yes, I talked to him today.
Okay.
Yep, it was about 2 hours ago.
Okay, I feel better about that then. So anyhow, relative, Mr. Nakbar is a very noble and honorable guy, but it's still hearsay, okay? You need to document from the Jorgensens that they don't have any problems. And we'll get into that here in just a second, so bear with me. I speak for a lot of people here, and complicity to the Casper Mountain Land Plan policies. I can help clear up a lot of things. Only reason I got involved in this is when the public road got shut down, or the county road got shut down. A lot of flags started going up from there, so bear with me, Hal. Mr. Nakbar got a lot of time. I'm the only guy speaking in opposition, so I need equal time. I like my neighbors, and I like Mr. Lehman. I've never met him, but I tried to reach out to him today, and he didn't want to shake my hand, so obviously he's pretty upset with me, and I'm not the bad guy here. I participated in putting the land plans together both in 1986, and I sat on the sidelines in 2004. There was a resolution passed in the 1984 that those policies and subdivision roads are required to be dedicated to the public. We can argue that to the second coming of Christ. But that plan, there was a lot of time and a lot of effort put into it, and it's to protect us on the mountain. Mr. Nakbar referred to Chapter 13. And, is it a goal or a policy? A policy is a rule, and a rule is a regulation. Any way you slice it. It also says in the subdivision regulations in Natrona County that wherever applicable, the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan overrides. That's why it was done. It's site-specific to Casper Mountain. It's been interpreted wrong. Eric, I'd argue with you till I was blue in the face, and some of your ambiguous interpretations of that tonight on them. But this is all going to work out. First of all, I want to point out to you where it says K2 Road going down the east side of Mr. White's property. That's not K2 Road, that's Crooked Pine Trail. If you look at the Reed subdivision map, Trish, isn't there a supplement or an exhibit for the Reed subdivision in your presentation there? I think there is. Can you scroll through there? And I'll tell you, K2 Road started out as Jackson Canyon Road. It does not go south down Mr. White's property line. Okay?
We might want to hold,
Okay, hang on.
you're losing me quickly, pointing out
Okay,
stuff that don't
there
have
we
a
go,
map to
thank
look
you.
at.
Yeah, I knew you had that in there. There's the plat for Reed Major subdivision. You can see where K2 Road goes, right there. Up higher on that, it says County Road.
Tracy, I can't tell what you're pointing at.
Okay, I'll do it over here. I'm a midget. You can't see that. Here, this says County Road right here, okay? But this says K2 Road, it sweeps around the corner. It doesn't come down here, this direction, as it's shown on the plat. That we were just looking at. You tracking with me? This road right here. Oh, okay. Let me go over here, I'll try to reach up there. Trish, you need to get a laser pointer in here. You know, West Midgets, okay? Right here, there's County Road, there's K2 Road. Now, there's actually, if you look at Reed Simple subdivision, that's Jackson Canyon Road. K2 Road does not come down this line, that is Crooked Pine Trail. You need to get that cleared up. You go back to the, we just had. This is listed as K2 Road, that's not K2 Road, that's Crooked Pine Trail. So the plat's wrong. We need to get it right, so we're not 100 years down the road, somebody else is scratching their head at what's going on. Okay, fire access road. On the plat, can you bring it down a little bit? Right there. This is dedication for private use is still a major issue. That road needs to go all the way on up, shown on the plat, and connecting to the corner of Mountain Homemakers, or Mountain Mineralized Home Site Subdivision. Even though the roads don't dry up, we can get them lined up. The Jorgensens will work with you on them. So, you know,
Time out, Tracy, excuse me. Why would we show that not being on the plat here?
pardon? Let me give you another example.
Did I gather
here.
we need to show something on the plat that's not on the property we're talking about?
You got her. Hang on just a second. Can you bring up A9? This road right here is a power line road, which is currently there. It's been there since 1955.
We're not talking Archery Range Road.
No, we're talking this road right here, going over to Flowers House and Park, to connect to the mountain mineralized home site.
Where that existing high line is now. Okay.
On it, that road's currently blocked, it's been big boulder, and has been since 2018. This road has served since 1955 as a secondary access route out of mountain mineralized home sites, and it's also served as a fire access road. It needs to be unblocked. The power line that runs down that is identified, that your subdivision rules and regulations state the easement number or the instrument number has to be recorded. It is not. It's on for that power line. It's identified, but the record's not there. Instrument number is. So that road needs to be in the morning unblocked, because it's been there since 1955, served as what was originally the primary access route into mineralized mountain home sites. Because there was no Hogadon Basin Road back when mineralized mountain home sites was developed in 1955. Okay?
Tracy, could I ask a question? Are
Yes,
those
sir.
three rocks at the southern end of Klein Drive?
They're on Mr. Neyman's property. It's up in this area right here. Mr. Campbell probably has a little better idea where those are. So, and he's here tonight. So that brings me back to this. On it, can you bring up the, hang on here just a second. We got that issue cleaned up here, okay? We need an easement number for the power line. We need to get the road unblocked, as it is the secondary access, what used to be the primary access to Mountain Acres Hubs, a mountain home, mineralized home site, and it serves as their fire access now, and the egress to get the heck out of there in case there's a fire on them. So that's important. That lays that one to rest. Now, moving on. I just talked to Ingrid Jorgensen about 3 o'clock this afternoon. But she's telling me he's not consistent with what Mr. Nakbar is telling you. I talked to Mr. Dennison yesterday, and that wasn't the read I got from him, but I'm not going to get in a tug-of-war here with Mr. Nakbar. But Christy Jorgensen was the last one that spoke before you. Sadly, I'm told she's down with cancer and chemotherapy, and she may not make it. So she couldn't be here. But I happen to have the letter that she sent y'all. It should be an attachment on here, right? You got this letter on there? Okay, that was sent to you guys back in on June 8th on it. And, I mean, they're not very happy, campers, about Jackson Canyon Road being shut off. So if you would, please bring me to exhibit number B3, or take me to B3. Okay, we're showing right here, showing the primary access coming in to the cabin. That used to be, well, that road wasn't there before Hogadon Basin Road. You move it up just a little bit. On their primary road had been, until it became the secondary road, and they chose to go to the primary road, coming on Hogadon Road. I would say that was probably done in the 50s. There's an easement that Mr. Jorgensen was kind enough to provide to the county for the construction of Hogadon Basin Road on them. So, you know, this is still used as their secondary access, but it darn sure is their loop road. Get the hell out of there if there's a fire. And it crosses this BLM parcel, and there just happens to be an easement issued by the Bureau of Land Management to the Jorgensen family. And we get to see it. I know it exists. It goes down here, and I think it might go down this line here and tie back to Jackson Canyon Road. That instrument number, or no one's even contacted BLM that I'm aware of, from Camille's camp. That needs to be done. These people are locked out. That's the Bureau of Land Management. That's us. That's the people. Honestly. You know, we're just going to tell you that with it. But bring me back to, you can see he's got Mr. President, he's done a hell of a job, don't he? Good guy. Bring it to exhibit B1. There's, you know, it's all around. We're going to have a required road out of here for a fire escape, but we just shut these guys off. I mean, anybody's been down into there, the fire, it's all spruce trees, I mean, it's out of there. On the beginning, when the road's not showing coming out of there, up to here, so if you would, Chris, please bring up exhibit, glasses here, about 85. You know, Christie wasn't in the best of shape when she wrote the letter. The letter indicated this was her primary access. It's not. It was up until Hogan Basin Road was established. But that's still a passable road. It's got a couple pieces of plywood laying in there. You know, that's a pretty well-traveled road right there. And that's the road that comes out of the backside of the southeast primary road. That road needs to stay there. You know, it's nice for Mr. Lehman and Mr. Bryson to propose on paper a new easement. Girls don't have deep pockets, I gotta tell you that. Why do they need to cut a new road where these guys didn't want to have to cut the road on just over the property line? That's wrong. That's totally wrong. So that takes care of that. The Jorgensens don't have a question at the table. It was my understanding there was going to be an email sent to you guys. If Mr. Dennison didn't do that, I don't think the girls are going to be too happy. I'm not speaking for them. I just happen to know the situation. Enough for that. They need a secondary access out of there that they had. And furthermore, the easement of record is not noted on the plat, and that's required based on the subdivision regulations of Natrona County. The instrument number has to be there. It may not be of record in the room, so somebody needs to get a hold of the real estate specialists. There's two of them out at the Bureau of Land Management, and get that information so y'all have it. So
Tracy, I've heard you talk about two easements now. One was the overhead easement, and now you're talking about there is an easement across toward the
Yes, sir.
Jorgensen's property.
the BLM has granted the Jorgensens an easement. I know the road's here. I don't know if they can put the road anywhere they want it to an easement, or if it's that specific. I haven't seen it. But it's up to the opposition here. It's trying to tell us they need to come up with that to show you. And if there's a number that needs to be referenced on the plat before you ever consider finalizing it.
So Tracy, you've seen an easement.
Carla Gallegos, and she called it to our attention on it. The lawyer has been in contact with the Bureau of Land Management. I talked to him yesterday on it, so it exists. It's not a phantom, it's not hearsay. I would never tell you guys anything if I couldn't back it up. I've had enough of the implications, accusations, and allegations that I'm not telling the truth. I'll leave it at that. But one last thing here, as far as evidence, there happens to be a power line easement or license. I got it right here. It's not noted on that plat at all. I can give you the record number, and I've already provided that to Mr. Bryson, but they need to be on there. Like I said, you get down the road 100 years from now, like we are here. Jackson Canyon Road showed on the original GLO plats of 1884. Goes back that far. And the easements were, for the county road were surveyed in 1935. So I've got all the records here. I'd be more than glad, Trist, to take the time out, come down and sit down with you to help bring this thing into compliance. But I'll do it with you guys and you only. I'm not meeting with the opposition here. And I'm not the opponent. I just want it right. And do I have a dog in the hunt? Heck yes. If this just rubber stamp spy can happen anywhere. It happened to us on the gun range. I found easements, roads split in lots of old subdivisions that have been dedicated privately that should have never been done. I don't want to get diverted off to that. I'm just about done here on it. This license, I can tell you, the power line was set out, and it's got, signed by the county, down by the road and bridge superintendent, I think John Burke at the time, or Tobin, one of the two. Oh, John Burke. This was done in 1972 on it, and it shows Jackson Canyon Road going right through Mr. Lehman's property with an underground power line. Whether it's there or not, I've mentioned it to John Bryson. He should have gone and checked. I've given him all the guidance I can give him on him, but, you know, what if somebody in one of those lots starts to dig a hole and doesn't know that power line's there and zaps the excavator operator? That's why these things are identified on plats on them. So this easement of record needs to be listed on that. Frankly, I don't think the line ever got put underground. I think it's an overhead power line that was done. One other item, the power line that goes down the proposed fire access to Mountain Minerals home site, power ran to the mountain in about 1955. That's another confirmation on them. So this needs to be put on there on them. So there's reasons for all of this stuff. Last but not least, I found Jackson Canyon Road, found an archived road book that goes up through 1943, beginning with the start of Natrona County roads, and as early as 1894 on it, but that's on file in the archives office. There's also a separate record book. Eric, you need to get that book back down to the girls in the records room. That's where it belongs. Still on your desk. It must be. That's the road record book we found
Mr.
down
Chairman, it is not on my desk.
Okay, let's get it back to the records room so we can find it, okay? Now, also found was a resolution in 1982 drafted by the county commissioners. Has been provided to Mr. Eric here on it, and it was relative to RS 2477 roads being dedicated. That followed up with a road book that he has that was put together in 1984 that was provided to the BLM, of which they have a copy of the same darn book. But what else they have is a status report of Natrona County roads from 1894 to 1984. What hasn't been found is the triggering document from the BLM, and they're looking for it. Jackson Canyon Road was in that book. So, Charmaine tried to maintain. It's a good thing she isn't here tonight. She'd be rather embarrassed on them. But that's been a county road from the date that it was established back in 1935. So let's open it up. I think the road ought to stay where in the heck it's at. If it's historical significance, I think the subdivision needs to go back to the drawing board and build the lots around the existing road. It's an unimproved county road. The benefit to that is maybe the developer can convince the road and bridge department they can keep that road open in the wintertime for the benefit of those people in there. I'm not advocating that. That's his battle to fight. So with that said, a fire access road is indeed a subdivision road that needs to be dedicated to the public. You asked that question, and you were spot on. If not, somebody can simply haul 3 boulders in and block it, or try to massage the presentation here and eliminate the fire access road that the Jorgensens desperately need. I'm almost done. I think what's been done is very charitable and neighborly? No. Anytime you rope shut a county road, my Lord, just because somebody comes down and spins cookies in front of my driveway, the gate coming into it, doesn't mean I can run out there and rope off Crimson Dawn Road to keep all the four-wheelers out. That's just a fact of life on the mountain and rural properties. That can happen to you downtown. So, subdivision roads need to be dedicated to the public, period. That goes back to policy number 8. And a policy is a rule, and a rule is a regulation. So let's get these taken care of so we don't fight this battle again. Sadly, there's another section And, you know, Mr. Lehman, I hope Mr. Lehman has the ropes down in the morning.
Tracy?
I'm about
If I
wrapped
could
up.
interrupt, you've said 3 times you're almost done.
Okay, I'm trying. Bear with me. Sadly, the blocking of 2 separate segments of Jackson Canyon County Road has been openly allowed and condoned by county officials for almost 3 years now. What's wrong with this picture? It needs to be taken care of. All it does is when this happens, it pits neighbors against neighbors. That's why this has drug out as long as it has. Had Mr. Lehman been told straight up that he had to follow any and all applicable rules and regulations and policies of the Casper Mountain Land Plan, the subdivision regulations in Natrona County, this would have breezed through without any problem first time. He's a victim of his own circumstances because the planning commissioner, that'd be Jason, not Trish, or the planning that time, didn't tell him that. She's taking a lot of flack here unwarrantedly on, so. You know, fiduciary responsibilities and responsibilities and malfeasance, we're borderline on that right now. But I'm going to wrap this up right here. Based on almost a dozen non-compliances, called to the attention of the county planner, the county attorneys, the planning commission, the board of county commissioners on 7/9 last Friday, my email I sent to all of you, I hope you took time, I know how you read it, relative to the latest Mountain Acre subdivision proposal. The planning commission is left with only one very clear, fair, equitable, that's right in your statutes of the zoning laws, consistent and non-discriminatory choice, and that is to once again kick the Mountain Acre subdivision proposal back to the county planner, and in turn instruct Trish here to not to bother to bring it back to you and forward again to the planning commission until such time that the proposal is in full conformity of any and all applicable policies, rules, and regulations, including the 8 that are openly stated and adopted in a resolution as early as 1984 for all subdivision roads on Casper Mountain to be dedicated to the public. So with that, thank you for the extra time. I'm not the jerk that I've been made out to be. If people feel that way, I stand alone. But this is wrong. All this has been upside down. And it isn't Mr. Lehman's fault. He wasn't guided appropriately. The system has failed him. I haven't failed him on him, so we need to work as expediently as we can to try to help him. Had this been done, he would have had it approved back in October. I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Hal.
Hold on
Appreciate
just a
the
second.
time.
So questions for Mr. Lamont?
You mentioned that power line easement.
Yes, sir.
Is that open to the public, or is it a power line easement?
It's power line easement that runs, the road was there before the fire access and the primary access to mountain mineralized home sites was there before the power line ran in, I'm guessing. Okay?
So now is it the power line easement, or is it not?
Pardon?
Isn't now the power line easement?
It's still the power line and the
So
easement.
that usually means it's for the power line company only.
Not always.
Most road easements are for the company.
Well, that's fine, we can argue that, but, you know, as far as the power company is concerned, the easement of record, the number needs to be on the plat. And that's the only means of fire access escape that's been there since 1955 for the folks of Mountain Minerals home site to get out down the property. And I mean, it's logical what went on there. I'm not making that up, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Lamont? I will have to say, I did read your lengthy letter to the planning folks here last week. I thought that was well done, well thought out. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. And I'm sorry for any of the word salad that was in there, but it's complicated when you're talking about 12 nonconformities. So, you know, and we've got new members on the planning commission on it, and, you know, sometimes it's an educational process on it, and we all learn together. That's part of the civic function.
I was fortunate enough to go up there and spend a couple hours last week.
I heard
So
that
all of this kind of fits.
I heard
better.
that you had, and I know that Chad's been up there, and I know that Jason went up, and I know a couple of the commissioners went up too as well. So, we're all going to get to where we need to go, but, Camille's got to play ball and play by the rules, and we'll get it taken care of. Fair enough?
Just to wrap things up, when you first came up, I heard you say you're not against the...
I'm not against his subdivision.
It's
I've
just
been
get these
accused of
details
that.
right.
I think it's fantastic. I've walked the boundaries of it on it, and, it looks great. On it,
Okay.
it's with water on it, and, that's going to be high-end people, I think, that are going to buy that, and it's going to be a great subdivision. On it, I have no problem with it at all.
Okay.
None. And as far as the easements, you can't pass it on hearsay. On it, it's the going across, the one that Lever had to provide, I don't think Mr. White even knows possibly that the lever-to-lever easement exists for a segment of road that we thought was K2 road on it, but that has to be done prior to the approval on it, not after the approval. What if any of them back out or croak on it? And same thing is said for a Judy Reed on it. I've looked all over through the simple and major subdivision. There's no partial that connects K2 Road making the corner across her property to get to Lever's property that White's own now. It's not in the legal description. If it is, I stand corrected. I want somebody to show me on them. So it's a long way. Hell, in your words, it just has to be right. This proposal is way, way short of being right. I'm
Thank you,
sorry
Mr.
that
Lamont.
Mr. Camille's been caught in the crossfire, but the next subdivision up there will be right too. That's proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in opposition to the application, please come forward. No one else in the audience wishing to speak in opposition? With that, close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, well, I guess this is part of the public hearing. Okay, forget I hit that thing. Come on up. Mr. Nakbar.
I'm Keith Nakbar, again, attorney for the applicant, with just a few comments regarding a rebuttal from what was said by the opponent. While we have this particular exhibit up, I want to just briefly address the Jorgensen Access issue. First off, if Jorgensen's had an issue with this, I think it's their responsibility to show up or submit something to the Planning Commission to say, hey, this subdivision is going to cause us this problem. And they're not here, and I can assure you, I spoke with their attorney just a couple of hours before this hearing, who told me they had no issue with this subdivision, and they were not going to be presenting anything in opposition.
Excuse me, Mr.
Yes.
So we do have in our paperwork here, a letter from the Jorgensens in opposition.
I think they've changed their position.
Okay?
So, in any event, let's play out what Mr. Lamont said. First off, he said that they had an easement from the BLM, which nobody has ever seen, okay? Number two, in my experience, the BLM doesn't grant easements. The federal government does not grant easements. They grant licenses. And why do they grant licenses? So they can take them away if you don't comply with their requirements. If you litter, if you do dangerous things on a roadway that goes over federal ground, they can take that away because they grant licenses, not easements. So I seriously doubt that there's actually an easement from the BLM. However, let's assume that there is. Excuse me, Trish. So let's assume that there's an easement here across this BLM land in favor of Jorgensen. I'm sorry, Mr. Lamont, but that does not give, even if that's legitimate and there's an easement there, that does not give Jorgensen's the right to trespass across Camille's property to access Jackson Canyon Road. It's that simple. You can't trespass just because you have an easement up to the boundary of someone else's property. Furthermore, it would be a real injustice to block a subdivision or to decline approval of a subdivision simply because a trespasser wants the ability to keep trespassing. That just simply isn't right. And so even if what Mr. Lamont says is correct, and the BLM granted the Jorgensens somewhere along the way an easement across their land, which would be a first that I've ever seen, that doesn't give them the right to continue to trespass on Mr. Lamont's property within this subdivision. Secondly, Mr. Lamont said that a policy is a rule and a rule is a regulation. So he stands alone with that interpretation because your county attorney and the Wyoming Supreme Court have both said that a policy does not have the power of law that a regulation does. So the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan is a policy. It's a plan or a policy. It is not a regulation. With regard to the KTWO Road, Trish, could you put Exhibit A2 up on the screen for us, please? That's the plat. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. The Reed subdivision. Oh, and I didn't write down. Let's see, the Reed subdivision. There we go. Mr. Lamont said that KTWO Road does not go straight down, but you will see this plat identifies the center line of KTWO Road right here. We believe that when this subdivision when this plat was prepared by WLC, they're incorrect in making it look like KTWO Road goes over to the west. It actually goes straight down here, and it's identified on this plat right there. So we believe that that is KTWO Road going straight down, and we believe that, I think that let's see, yeah, if I'm not mistaken, the Russell A. Kilmer tract is now the tract, that was the Lever tract, I believe, owned by Lever. That is the granting of the right-of-way that I have the original in my file, and I gave copies to Trish, who hopefully has shown them to you, or at least she would tell you that she has copies of those signed documents from Lever and from Reed's resolving any issue regarding that particular stretch of roadway.
Mr. Nackbar, could I
Sure.
belabor a point? So the subdivision here for Reed, so that I understand. It's this corner right here. This is the property we're considering right here. This is the corner we're talking about.
I believe so. Is that correct, John? Yes.
So I'm looking at the plat, and it shows K2 Road, and it goes off to the west, but you're saying that K2 Road actually goes north and south once at that fork in the road.
Yeah, right here. I know it looks like KTWO goes off to the west, but if you look here, this is WLC, center line KTWO Road, right down here.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, you are welcome. Finally, and this is largely irrelevant, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but the argument was Jackson Canyon Road is a county road, and Camille has blocked that road. What I will tell you is this: approval of this subdivision will resolve any lingering issue regarding Jackson Canyon Road, at least as far as it's in this subdivision, because at that point, the owner of that property will be dedicating it to the public. So that piece of the puzzle is solved, and it won't be blocked off because it will be clearly dedicated as a public road. So, the one final thing, I'm sorry. There was a question, or there was an issue raised, yes, there was an issue raised that the plat does not contain the power line easement, and so that is in violation supposedly of Chapter 5, section, or paragraph 2, which requires that in subparagraph A3, location and dimensions of binding and recordable access and utilities easements of not less than 40 feet in width to a public road, unless specifically waived by the grantee or transferee in a binding and recordable document. What I will hand you, if I may, is, and I'd like to make this part of the record, this is the power line license. It is not an easement. It is instrument number 134340 with the County of Natrona, John Tobin, County Clerk, Book 155 ACNL, page 531. I'd like to make that a part of the record, if I may. We'll call that Exhibit C. So there is no requirement for the designation of licenses on the plat. And so to say that the plat is defective because it doesn't show the power line easement is inaccurate.
And the reason for that is it's a license instead of an easement.
It is a license instead of an easement, that's correct. And an
right.
easement, your county attorney will tell you, an easement and a license are two separate things. They're distinct, they each have their own characteristics. That a license is not an easement. So with that, members of the commission, we would ask you to approve this subdivision application as we have proposed. I think that we have addressed all of the meritorious arguments against it. I think we have made modifications to address the legitimate concerns that have been raised. Those other concerns are not worthy of modification. They are not worthy of delay or any further tabling of this application. Thank you. And I'd be glad to answer any other questions.
Questions from Mr. Nakbar? Everyone good? Thank you,
Thank you.
sir. All right, with that,
Mr. Chairman, just a point of
Yes.
clarification. There was, just to acknowledge on the record, Ms. Chavez did receive copies of the right-of-way easements that Mr. Nakbar had referenced. I have briefly reviewed them. They do purport to be exactly as he represented them with regard to KTWO Road.
license, no.
Right-of-way easements that were,
Oh, for K2 Road,
yeah,
okay.
K2 Road, yeah.
From Reed and from Jorgensen.
That's correct. One is signed by Elizabeth
Oh, I'm
Nelson
sorry.
and Judith Reed, and the other is by Gary
Lever.
Lever.
Okay, great. Okay. With that, we'll call it an end to the public hearing on the Mountain Acres subdivision. Time for discussion. Mr. Mitchell.
So the power line easement doesn't seem like it's an issue. This BLM easement, I mean, is that any relevance? Because it sounds like nobody knows whether it exists.
So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Mitchell, so I would concur, having dealt with the BLM, they don't issue easements. I've negotiated numerous licenses, so totally separate beast. But I have not seen one, and I think that Mr. Nakbar was correct. It would seem to be a license to nowhere, essentially, because it would dead end on the applicant's property. So legally, I don't see it as an issue.
Just one other question. So you talked about a road that's blocked by some boulders. Has the fire department raised any issues of egress or that for people exiting their property?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Mitchell, we did receive a letter from the chief of the Casper Fire Department that has stated there are no concerns with the application.
Any other discussion? The chair would entertain a motion on the subject.
So I would motion to approve Let me get the number again.
Right here. It's on your screen.
Okay, PS 21-002 with the following, I guess I don't know if we call them amendments. As far as the ISD, I would, since the major subdivision rules require it, I would say we should forward it up with the recommendation for an ISD, but since the mountain regulations say that you can be optional to give the county commissioners the opportunity to make it a homeowner, whatever, the homeowners association, if that's what they feel is best accommodates the, the plan up there. And the second, the cul-de-sac, I don't have a feeling whether it needs to be private or public, but I think if it's going to be a private road, I would just make sure that the fire department and the police both sign off on it, that they have no problem with it being a private road, because really the guidance to the plan says that any new road should be public but privately maintained, but that, I don't think that's required in the major subdivision. So I think as long as the fire department and the police don't have a problem with it, then I don't have a problem with it. So,
Mr. Mitchell, might I suggest, in the same vein that your first one was made about the Improvement Service District, that we just say, and I dug that up, it said new roads shall be dedicated to the public. I think a consideration can be made that we say dedicate that road serving lots 1 and 2 to the public, but ask for the county commissioner's consideration on whether they wish to do otherwise.
So I'll restate my motion. So the recommend approval of PS 21-002 with the First Amendment being that we recommend a improvement service district, but have the county commissioners consider making it a homeowners association, or have it homeowners association, however it is. And then the amendment 2 would be that we recommend that the cul-de-sac be a public road but privately maintained to comply with the Casper Mountain Plan, but give them the option to make it a private road if they feel that that complies with county policy. And then you would include all data as statements of fact. I think that's,
Might I suggest one more?
sure.
That the commission, I had it written down here, that the commission recommends approval of the 2 lots, lots 5 and 7, that have those
As platted?
as platted, that have the segments separate from the main body of the lots.
Mr. Chairman, and I think perhaps the way to word that would be to approve the 2 exception requests to allow that bifurcation, slight bifurcation of those 2 lots. That's, in Chapter 10, it does require that comments and recommendations made by planning and zoning on those specific exceptions then be communicated, so.
Do you want me to repeat the motion? Okay, okay.
And one more, should we address the filing of the easements that you have in hand from Reed and from Lever? Do you think, Mr. Attorney?
Mr. Chairman, I think certainly that's been offered by the applicant. I think it's within your purview to make a recommendation that it be contingent upon, the recordation of the proffered right-of-way easements.
Prior to selling the first lot?
I don't see a problem with that.
Mr. Mitchell, would you agree to that?
I would agree.
All right, we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
A second.
Second for Mr. Grant. Any further discussion? All in favor of approval of PS 21-002 as as announced, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we have PS 21-002 is approved. It's going to the Board of County Commissioners at their July 19th meeting. That's next week. Thank you all. What's that? All right, so next on the agenda is consideration of PS 21-003, and that's approval of Cut Hill Estates lots 9 and 10. Trish, do you have a staff report for us, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This is an application by Mike Corrigan, and the location is near the intersection of Geary Dome Road and Coal Creek Road. The parcel is zoned urban agriculture, and the surrounding parcels to the east, west, and south are also urban ag. The parcel to the north is rural residential 1. Some site photos. This is taken from Coal Creek Road. The applicant's residence is on the left, and right in the center of this photo is the parcel that they're looking at splitting off from their current lot. This is from Coal Creek Road looking south. Again, you can see on the right, there's the subject parcel. And again, from Coal Creek Road, this is a little bit closer looking at that area that would be split off, that 10 acres. A little bit of background. In 2000, Mike and Joanne Corrigan purchased a 20-acre parcel that was part of the Cut Hill Estates major land division. In 2007, they purchased a 10-acre parcel that they had added to their existing 20 acres. The combination of these lots, to have them combined together, we had to go through the simple subdivision process. That's the only process that we had to legally combine these lots. So that's important because now that we're looking at the subdivision, we're considering it a major subdivision because it's been previously platted. It's got a title of a simple subdivision name right now, even though they never split that parcel through the subdivision process. So again, they're now requesting the subdivision to split out the parcel they purchased, since the land now has that subdivision legal description. That split requires the major subdivision process. The major subdivision is defined as a division of land into 2 or more parcels of 140 acres or less and not classified as a simple subdivision. So there we are with that simple subdivision, and now it's kicked it up to that major. The criteria for approval is the subdivision consistent with the development plan. The proposed subdivision is located in the Sandy Lake area of the development plan. The development plan projection is to infill in the existing subdivisions only and upgrade roads through ISDs and no new major subdivisions. The proposed finding of fact, the subdivision does comply with the zoning resolution, so those lots are going to be over the minimum of 10 acres. And they'll both house residents and agricultural, same as the adjacent neighbors. Geary Dome Road is County Road 702, and Coal Creek Road, which is also a county road, and it's 701, are maintained by Natrona County. The subdivision is considered a major subdivision. Is the subdivision in conformance with the general provisions and subdivision design standards? The subdivision has been processed in accordance with the general provisions and subdivision design standards of the Natrona County subdivision regulations. Has the applicant provided evidence that a sufficient water supply system and sewer disposal system will comply with state and local laws and regulations? The applicant currently has a well that supplies water. The new lot would also have a well if sold and developed. Does the subdivision appear to be compatible with the surrounding area, not detrimental to the future development of the area, and not detrimental to the health, safety, and general welfare? The proposed finding of fact, the application has been sent to the Natrona County Health Department, and the applicant is completing any necessary percolation and trench tests that may be required by the Health Department. Documentation satisfactory to the Board of County Commissioners that an improvement in service district requirements have been met. Again, this is one where we would not require an improvement in service district because both waste accesses are county roads. As of tonight's meeting, there have been no comments received and notification was sent to the adjacent property owners. Staff proposes the Planning Commission enter a motion and vote to recommend approval of this application by the Board of County Commissioners and include the findings of fact that were in the staff report and the PowerPoint. And I will answer questions.
Questions for staff?
If they already got approval, I assume they're gonna access it off Cold Kirk Road, or they got approval from the county for that?
There's two approaches that could be utilized for the subdivision. One of them is off of Gary Dome Road. On the plat, you'll see that there was an access easement that's provided to this lot, and there is also potential for Cold Creek Road access, yes.
Robert, questions?
No questions.
Trish, I did have a couple questions. So I noticed there's a fairly major high line runs across apparently that property. I was thinking that needed to be shown on the plat.
That can certainly be added, Mr. Chairman, if it's not on the plat.
And so I know this is kind of a different major subdivision, but DEQ Chapter 23, is the owner required to go through that process?
The applicant did not need to submit the Chapter 23. Right now, the state statutes say that any subdivision with 6 lots or more is required for a Chapter 23 and DEQ study. So with this being just a simple subdivision of one, well, not a simple subdivision, but a division of one lot into 2, it's not required.
Okay. And the third question I have, going back to Mr. Zeal's question about access. So this 20, how wide is that? 25-foot road or drive that's part of the plat. I guess my way of thinking, if upkeep of that with 2 property owners that don't get along, I would feel better if the Planning and Zoning Commission maybe considered that improvement of service district necessary, and if the commissioners, just like we did last time, if the commissioners don't want to do it, let them back off of it.
Okay.
What do you think about that?
I think that's up to the Planning Commission if they want to add that as a condition.
Okay, all right. Thank you. All right. I'm going to start the public hearing. Open the public hearing for consideration of Cut Hill Estates, lots 9 and 10. Everyone wishing to speak in favor, please come forward. Give your name and address, please.
Sorry, I sat too long, my legs go out. I'm Michael Corrigan, 7459 East Gary Dome Road, Evansville, Wyoming. The only comments I have, because I think it's pretty cut and dried, and I promise it won't take as long as the last one. The well there's a possibility of a well, but I've already reserved a city water access from Sandy Lake Estates. I haven't paid for it, but it's available. So they'll have water either way. And there will be an access for that right up the side of our road. The shared road, we already have a buyer. This young gal and her mom have been boarding with us for a little over a year. and I'm having some health problems. I can't clear the road. They have agreed to use my equipment and keep that road open. They're both really super nice people. If it doesn't work out that way, then I'm either gonna have to sell or hire it done. It's all been looked at. And the access to Coal Creek, somebody else could build that road, but I don't think it's feasible because we thought about it. It's pretty steep.
The access to Coal Creek. Oh, okay.
That'd be quite a road coming up, and then you've got the mailboxes, and then you're coming right off the top of the road. Speed limit in there is 55 miles an hour. It'd be a pretty dangerous operation, but that's up to them.
Okay.
And I'd entertain any other questions.
Questions for Mr. Corrigan?
So what you're saying is Coal Creek Road is quite a bit higher.
Probably 20 feet, 25 feet. That's why we granted access. Honestly, if there was a way to get a road on the Coal Creek, I'd put it in. But I just don't see it happening. And neither did CEPI.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Corrigan.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in favor of the application, please come forward. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition, please come forward. Seeing none, call the public hearing closed. Time for discussion on the application. Chair would entertain a motion if someone's ready for that.
I would make a motion to approve PS 21-003, the Ktwo Estates subdivision.
A second.
So we have a motion and a second. I guess as far as discussion, what do you guys think about the improvement and service district? I got worried about that, and I kind of went back looking through our rules and regulations, and the way I read it, and it does indeed say that you shall, for major subdivisions, improvement and service districts, and maybe the county commissioners have been going elsewhere when it comes to enforcing that, but I think as far as our responsibility to the Board of County Commissioners, I think it should be addressed.
Well, I don't think 10 acres is a major subdivision, because you got 10-acre lots all over the county that don't fall into that.
Okay?
But it's being planned under their major subdivision, right? That's my understanding.
Mr. Chairman, this is a subdivision that's going through the major subdivision process because of it previously being platted as a simple subdivision. I would like to note that this is not a platted road right-of-way on the plat. It's a 25-foot utility and access easement, so I don't know if that makes any difference, but right now it's on the plat as just an easement.
Mr. Chairman, just by way of background, I think this requirement was added to try to encourage road maintenance in the county. What we found, as a matter of fact, is that these are formed, but oftentimes they never do anything with them. And so then there's reporting requirements, and once a year I get letters from the state, and we end up having to dissolve them. So while people are checking the boxes, it's really not solving the issue, I guess, that was sought to be solved by establishing them. But I would say that as reading the letter of the law as embodied in the zoning resolution, I think you're correct. It does require it. I think the Board of County Commissioners could grant an exception to that if they so choose. So I don't know if that's helpful in your discussion.
Okay. Well, I didn't make the motion or the second, so.
So can we proceed with the assumption that the county commissioners are well aware of this issue with ISDs, and we don't have to, I'm just curious as to whether they are aware enough of this that we have to put that in as a recommendation.
So, Mr. Chairman, I think they're generally aware it has come before them. Several developers have brought it up. This was really, I don't know if it was before COVID or it kind of dropped off the radar, frankly. So I think if it's silent, the staff recommendation is to not require one, so I think that would be the recommendation.
And I would also, Mr. Chairman, if I could, state that on your next agenda for August, I think it's August 10th, the text amendment to remove the improvement service district requirement is coming before you.
Okay. Yeah, so that's where I was having trouble, Mr. County Attorney, is playing referee over how we just determine which ones we need to worry about and which ones we don't. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, your point's well taken. I mean, I think the safe way would be to just, recommend it absent, if they choose to waive it, then it's really, the ball's squarely in their court. You've fulfilled your duty at the planning and zoning level.
Okay. All right. We have a motion and a second for approval of Cut Hill Estates, lots 9 and 10, PS 21-003. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Mr. Corrigan, your PS 21-003 is going to the county commissioners to be heard on August 3rd, 2021.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next on the agenda is conditional use permit 21-003, conditional use permit for a recreational facility. Do we have a staff report? Please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is an application that was submitted by Josh Oster on behalf of the Pathfinder Boat and Fishing Club. The request is for a recreational facility which is defined as a structure or grounds for sports or athletic activities such as athletic club, swimming pool facility, tennis court, marina, ski area, etc., including the impertinent concessions. Pathfinder Boat and Fishing Club has managed the marina and the RV park since 1988. They provide essentials to the public like fuel, groceries, propane, water, and their contract to manage the marina does not expire until May of 2041. The entire area is zoned ranching, agricultural, and mining. This was taken out of their master plan, which was in your packet, just showing the area that is leased by the Pathfinder Boat and Fishing Club. The conditional use permit criteria: will granting the conditional use permit contribute to an overburdening of county services? The application has been sent to the Health Department, Natrona County Road and Bridge, and the Parks Department, and then Natrona County Fire Protection District. The only comment received was from the Health Department, and it was in regards to the septic system that's would be in place if the public showers were installed, and that's the only comment that they had. The proposed finding of fact: the conditional use permit to allow the continued use of the marina will not increase the services that the county currently provides. No additional county services would be required. So again, this is just putting in place a conditional use permit for a marina that's been in operation since 1988. Will granting the conditional use permit cause undue traffic, parking, population density, or environmental problems? The applicant currently works with the Natrona County Health Department, Department of Environmental Quality, Wyoming State Engineer, and Wyoming Department of Revenue Liquor Division to obtain all licenses and permits required to operate and improve the Pathfinder Marina recreational area. So the proposed finding of fact: the continued use of the marina will not cause undue traffic, parking, population density, or environmental problems. The applicant will continue to work with the federal, state, and county entities to operate and improve the facility. Will granting the conditional use permit impair the use of adjacent property or alter the character of their neighborhood? The Pathfinder Boat and Fishing Club has managed the marina again since 1988. Permitting the marina as a conditional use will not change the character or impair the use of adjacent properties. Will granting the conditional use permit detrimentally affect the public health, safety, and welfare, or nullify the intent of the development plan or the zoning resolution? Proposed finding of fact: approval of the conditional use permit will not detrimentally affect the public health, safety, and welfare, or nullify the intent of the development plan. With an approved conditional use permit, the marina will be compliant with the development plan and the zoning resolution. To date, Natrona County Development Department has received no comments in opposition. Staff sent public notice to adjacent property owners. Staff proposes a motion and vote by the Planning Commission to recommend approval of the requested agenda item. And I did add one condition, and in the plan that you have, the packet that you have is the master plan that's been approved by the Bureau of Reclamation. So staff is recommending the condition that the most current approved Bureau of Reclamation Pathfinder Marina and RV Park master plan shall be the guide for any future development or modifications for this area. Staff would also recommend you incorporate the findings of fact. And so I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Questions for staff?
I just had one question that, it seemed like the only two things that were essentially changing is that they were, I mean, they're upgrading things, but they're creating a fish cleaning station and public showers. That seems like the two new things they were putting in.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Mitchell, those are some of the modifications, but what the plan does is allows for any future upgrades, or like, I think right now they're looking at doing, upgrading like a 400-foot like deck that's kind of started to fall apart without an approved master plan. We, as the planning department, really can't approve it because it's not in the guide that we have. Also, the Bureau of Reclamation has pushed all of the, whether it's the Alcova Water Ski Club, the Boat Club, the Alcova Marina, the Pathfinder Marina, to have master plans in place that are enforceable by the counties that they're in. So, as you may remember, we had here a couple months ago come forward with an application to do a zone change to a planned unit development and then adopt the plan that way. We ran into acreage issues. Going through the conditional use permit process to permit the marina in this way and add the condition of this master plan is allowing us to still come to the end that the Bureau of Reclamation would like to see, as well as Pathfinder Boat and Fishing Club and the Planning Department.
Any other questions for Trish? I got a couple. So let's deal with the health department where they raised issue with the showers, and I see the showers are 15 to 20 years out, or maybe 10 to 15 now that this is 2017 or 2018 when this, I think, was dated. So what do we need to worry about there? I'm assuming that they want extra area set aside to redo the field lines for a septic tank leach field system.
So, Mr. Chairman, the application that we're looking at is for the marina itself. It's not for the RV park or the showers, because those are our permitted use in the ranching, agriculture, and mining district. What we're specifically looking at is the marina as a conditional use per the regulations, and not the actual RV park with the shower.
Oh, okay. All right. My second question is, you mentioned the most current, is there any difference between what we have and what the Bureau of Reclamation approved?
That is the plan that the Bureau of Reclamation approved.
This is the most current?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
And also, I would like to note that the applicant was unable to attend, so if you have further questions, I will try to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Mr. County Attorney, I assume we still have to go through the public hearing process, hit the gavel, and,
Mr. Chairman, I think you're correct. We should make a record.
okay. All right. Calling the public hearing open for consideration of conditional use permit 21-003, and that is for the Pathfinder Marina only, not the RV park, correct? Okay. All right. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of, please come forward. Seeing none. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in opposition to, please come forward. Seeing no one coming forward in approval or opposition, call the end of the public hearing. Any discussion? Chair would entertain a motion for consideration.
I would motion to approve CUP 21-003 by the Planning and Zoning Commission and of the requested conditional use permit by the Board of County Commissioners with the following condition: the most current approved Bureau of Reclamation, Pathfinder Marina, and RV Park Master Plan shall be the guide for future development modifications in the marina recreation area. Also incorporate all reference, all findings of fact.
Whoa. That's awesome. So we have a motion?
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Conditional use permit for Pathfinder is approved. Next on the list is consideration of zone change 21-006. Request to change the zoning district classification from light industrial to suburban residential 2, SR2, and that concerns property out near the airport. Do we have a staff report, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is a request by Mike Caruth, and again, that's from light industrial to suburban residential 2. The subject property is west of the airport and south of Highway 2026. The subject parcels are zoned light industrial and commercial. The purple on this map is the airport owned property. This is looking at the subject parcel on the right. And this is on one of the proposed roads out there, and the subject parcel is on the left side of this picture. So the Planning Commission and the board shall require that the applicant provide evidence that the proposed zone change will meet at least one of the following criteria. The applicant has chosen number 6. The proposed rezoning is necessary in order to provide land for a community need that was not anticipated at the time of the adoption of the Natrona County Development Plan. And again, we adopted the latest plan in 2016. So I took pieces of the applicant's statement and summarized them. The new Wyoming Economic Summary Report states that prices of single-family homes in Wyoming has increased by 8.4% in the fourth quarter of 2019, and the number of building permits during the same time increased to up 21.5%. It is evident that there is more and more empty industrial buildings available for sale or lease in the area, and there is an abundance of industrial property more suited to the industrial sector, either via location, quality of land, or within already built development. Natrona County has an overabundance of light industrial properties, developed and undeveloped, and a shortage of suburban agricultural properties based on data from Realtor.com. In recent times, we are noticing a very dynamic shift of the needs of Natrona County. With the oil crash in 2016, 2019, and carried forward with the COVID-19 pandemic, no one could have predicted the changes that have come about. With many business owners in the industrial oil and gas sector that decided to close shop and retire early, there is now a large number of industrial shops that are abandoned and sitting empty. With the large influx of people getting away from major metropolitan areas and moving to our city, we feel that developing this land into a nice suburban ag area would benefit the community in several ways. This development would be one of the first areas the tourists and people visiting our community would see when coming into town from the west. The water line has been approved and for the most part is in place. Final water line installation and testing in the fall of 2021, pending the zone change approval. Septic has been approved for each lot at a higher use than would be required for a single-family dwelling. And so a little bit of background, in your maps, in your packet, there was maps of different subdivisions and a little bit of historic zoning and lot sale information. So the Landmark Industrial Park, which is the one that we're looking at right now, was platted in 1980 as 43 lots. In 41 years since it has been platted as an industrial park, only 8 lots have been developed, or 18% of the subdivision. The other subdivisions in the vicinity have comparable situations. Westgate Park 4 was platted as an industrial park in 1981 as 37 lots. There are only 10 lots developed, or 27% of that subdivision. Zephyr Industrial Park was platted in 1981 as 22 lots, and only 20 of them were usable. There was 2 lots that had some drainage issues, and they were unable to be developed. There were no lots sold until 2005, when the subdivision was changed from light industrial to suburban residential 2. There are now 13 lots developed, or 65% of that subdivision. And again, this is that map that accompanied that data, showing that the Zephyr Industrial Park is 1 lot away, and that's the one that went from from industrial to suburban residential. And then the Westgate Park 4 is east. So the zoning district's permitted uses, light industrial currently allows as a permitted uses like a dwelling, an auto repair service wrecker, an airport or heliport, convenience store, truck stop, manufacturing, and there's no maximum height. Suburban residential, you can have a dwelling or an accessory building, a home occupation, you can have light agriculture, a park, a playground, specialty shop, and the maximum height in this area is 36 feet. Staff's finding, the 2016 development plan was adopted again in 2016. These parcels are located in Neighborhood 2, which is landmark. The recommendation for this area is infill industrial on the north side of Landmark Lane and residential south from Zephyr Road, and then upgrade and maintain roads through improvement and service districts. The zone change is not supported by the development plan, and the applicant has provided information showing a community need that was not anticipated when the development plan was adopted. And again, this goes back to that criteria number 6, where the applicant would show that the needs have changed since this plan was written. Landmark Industrial Park was platted October 14th, 1980, and consists of primarily 2-acre lots. Future development would utilize public water and on-site septic systems. The suburban residential minimum district size is 6 acres, with the minimum lot size being 2 acres, and lots within the zone change area are at or above that minimum lot size, so they would be conforming with the suburban residential 2 zone district. Natrona County Health Department reviewed the zone change and does not have any objections to the request to rezone. Further evaluation may be necessary prior to construction, and this is going back to this subdivision was originally platted and reviewed in 1980s, and so when they go to build, they would just relook at those lots. WYDOT does not have concerns with the zone change. If the applicant plans to utilize a new access off of 2026, they will need to contact WYDOT to discuss access. Public comment, the Development Department notified 30 property owners. Staff sent notifications to the Natrona County Airport, Natrona County Fire, Natrona County Health Department, Wyoming Department of Transportation. Staff did receive a comment from the airport, which was part of your packet, and that came in on Friday. And so that's in there, and there was also a response from the applicant in regards to that letter. Staff has not received any comments from the public on this agenda. Staff proposes a motion and vote by the Planning Commission to recommend approval by the Board of County Commissioners and incorporate the findings of fact in the staff report in tonight's meeting. And with that, I would answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? Trish, I would bring up one concern. I know the health department said that they're okay with it as is. I recall that Vista West, in fairly close proximity, 20-plus years ago, high groundwater, and I think I read somewhere in the report that high groundwater is a concern out in this area, to the detriment of septic tank leach field systems. So I raised the flag that we could have some problem with septic tanks, and the developer, if he moves toward submitting a subdivision application, maybe looking at a sanitary sewer extension to the wastewater plant.
Okay.
And I got a response to Hal's Vista West's high water, groundwater levels. Casper Cove Irrigation District put in a pipeline, and it took care of a lot of them issues with that groundwater issues over there.
Okay. Thank you, Trish. All right, we're ready to move ahead. I'd call a public hearing for consideration of zone change application 21-006, and that's for changes district classification from light industrial to suburban residential 2 out by the airport. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Mike Ruth, 11549 Goose Egg Road, Casper.
Hello.
So Trish did a pretty good job lining this out. To your concern, as far as the septic, with the industrial zoning or whatever, it's still, the use would still have to be septic. And there may be a lot or two in there down, there's kind of an alkali patch that may or may not be, I don't know, if we can sell it or not, and if the septic is not permissible there, then we'd just skip that lot. There, as far as access to the highway, no other access is being planned. The two routes off of highway, the 9 Mile, I think, would be that way around, and then off of Landmark Lane directly to the highway. So we would not propose any other access points. As far as I know, also, there was a lot that was sold just recently. I think it's, do you have the plat?
I do not have it on the map.
I think anyhow, it was sold within the last month, and they built an access off of so it's right there next to the commercial, right here. So what those folks are gonna do with it, my assumption is build a house. That's what, and anyhow, what the realtors told me, so I think their plan is just to build it's a 10-acre lot, so this would kind of jive with that that's going on there now, and we've also built a shop in the ag area. So we're kind of sticking with that plan right now as far as leaving it more towards residential rather than industrial. Yeah, and if y'all have any questions for me, I'm ready to answer.
Questions for Mr. Caruth? Is that lot that you're making reference to, is that the one that has the building on it now, that has that old building?
No, well, it's a new building.
Okay. The one I was looking at was
So
pretty old.
there's a lot that's, there's a lot right here.
Yeah,
That's, I think that's an old water well. that
Oh, okay.
Used to supply water to CAC.
okay.
And I think that's a good point too. We would buy that lot, but I don't know if the owner would sell or what right now.
Okay.
So right now, the
for now.
well's not working, has not been used for, as far as I know, for over 10, 15 years, so it's been a while.
Any other questions for Mr. Caruth? One more. So I'm assuming you've seen the letter from the airport,
I have.
and it looks like there was a rebuttal from you. Can you fill us in on what's going on there? That's a lot to read.
Sure.
We didn't get a chance to read it until we
The
sat
airport's
down here.
primary concern is any development that would hinder airport expansion and also then cause conflict with either if it's industrial owners or residential people. We have studied so the major concern is noise And I suppose the complaints that would be involved with that noise. Either one, the Zephyr community or the proposed rezoning of this landmark area, the noise is, with jets, Zephyr is a little noisier. And beyond that, ours has a similar amount of noise. Neither one's really, it's a horse apiece and depending. The air traffic primarily does not fly over or it really doesn't affect our area as much as right there where the planes come, depart, and arrive right next to Zephyr. So it is a little louder over there by Zephyr. So
I believe the planes fly more northeast to southwest, the way the runway runs, the way
I
my
think-
house lays.
I think, Chad, the airport runway, the primary runway, I think the center line's actually right here, right?
It's not further west, it's not west of your property?
There is another runway up at that's a secondary runway. The primary one really just comes right here. Within the runway being here, next to the highway.
So I guess I have a question for staff. So Trish, this letter from Glenn Janeska, would that information be, would that be held on to at which point Mr. Caruth, I'm assuming, would show up with a subdivision application for us?
Mr. Chairman, the subdivision has already been approved. It was approved back in 1980. The lots are already divided. What we're looking at is just a zone change from the industrial use to a residential use. I would refer to Mr. Nelson on the conditions or the requests that the airport has made and their relevance on the zone change.
So this is a situation where if this is approved tonight, it goes to the county commissioners with a zoning change recommendation, which means that Mr. Caruth could go out and sell lots for residential use right away.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to note that the light industrial zoning district currently allows a dwelling. So he could sell a lot right now with a light industrial zoning district and build a house on it.
Okay. So
This is a formality mainly.
you have no plans to change the size of the lots or area or anything, just make it primarily residential instead of light industrial?
As platted.
Mr. Chairman, that's all correct. Under the current zoning, residential construction could take place now. I think in some respects, this zone change would restrict the types of businesses that could go in. And as you probably are aware, when we do zone changes, we can't condition the zone change. One question I do have for Ms. Chavez is that, we do have an airport overlay district, and not familiar personally with the extent, but my question then for staff, if I might, is would this property fall within that overlay district? And if so, then could you briefly describe what other conditions or restrictions would be applicable?
Mr. Chairman, the parcels that we're looking at are within the airport overlay district. There's a navigation easement that is between the owner of land and the airport board. Typically, this is done when the subdivision is created, and the subdivision file did indicate that one was created, but we have not found the record of that. So in this instance, it wouldn't be unheard of to have Mr. Caruth get with the airport board and work on a navigation easement. And that would entail, height restrictions, material restrictions as far as roof material. So we would be looking at non-metal or non-shiny materials. They would look at any sort of emissions of smoke or anything that would create any hazards in that airspace. So those would be worked out between the applicant or the owner and the airport board. Did that help?
It did help, but there's some fairly sophisticated requirements here that Mr. Januska outlines. Mr. County Attorney, if the board here considered this in a favorable manner, would it be out of line to say that the applicant shall abide by the details of this letter?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, so I think that the points Mr. Januska makes are well taken. I'm not sure that those are appropriate conditions to put on a zone change, primarily because we can't condition a zone change. It's either changed or not. I think where those restrictions and those requests are met are really in the subdivision process. So I would agree with Ms. Chavez. I think that prior to any development taking place in there, if the navigation easement isn't executed and recorded, then that probably needs to be taken care of. I think those, Mr. Januska's concerns would be really addressed at the development stage, not at the
Before a building permit?
before a building permit would be issued, or a zone certificate or anything like that, but not at the zone change
Okay.
stage.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Cruz.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in favor of the zone change? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in opposition to the zone change? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Any discussion?
I think it's odd how under light industrial they can go over 36 feet, and it says right in here in the letter that they don't want anything over 36 feet. So if it was changed to suburban residential, it'd be almost more in their favor, the airport's favor.
Okay. Chair would entertain a motion.
I move to accept the zone change ZC 21-006 from light industrial to suburban residential.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Grant. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Zone change is approved for submittal to the county commissioners. Okay, the last one on the agenda is zone change 21-005. Request to change the zoning district classification from urban ag to rural residential 2. And that's in the area of the B.B. Brooks property out north of town. Do we have a staff report, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So this is an application by Wyoming Land Acquisition and Land Bros LLC. Again, this is an application from urban ag to rural residential, and the application covers approximately 5,200 acres. This is the subject area right there in the middle. It is north of the city of Casper and east of the town of Bar None and east of I-25. The northern portion is B.B. Brooks land that's up there that's already divided in 40-acre tracts. The subject area is all zoned urban agriculture, and you can see on the bottom where that blue is, that's where it adjoins the city of Casper. So it's as you would expect when you're out there, there is nothing. So this is a site photo looking east, and this is looking south. This is looking west. So the Planning Commission and the board shall require that the applicant provide evidence that the proposed zone change will meet at least one of the following criteria. On this one, the applicant is looking at the development plan and compliance with that development plan. The number 6 was also included in this application, and that again is that proposed rezoning is necessary, in order to provide land for a community need that was not anticipated when we did that development plan. While the subject parcels are not out of compliance with the development plan, the plan does support residential zoning districts. The change from urban agriculture to rural residential will not create a conflict, as they are both low-density residential zoning districts that allow for agricultural uses. The growth management area, the development plan defines growth as residential, commercial, and industrial subdivisions or parcel development. It's proposed to be, but not exclusively, limited to the growth management area, and growth management is the key to quality development, protection of the environment, and quality of life in Natrona County. Staff's findings, the 2016 development plan has this area as Neighborhood 42 or Resolution Flats. The recommendation for this area is residential and commercial in coordination with the City of Casper and Evansville. The subject parcels are located in the City of Casper's growth boundary, and so the application had been sent to the City of Casper for comments. The City of Casper responded back in full support of this zone change. The application is supported by the development plan recommendation for Neighborhood 42. Neighborhood 42 is located within the growth management area, which is to be serviced most efficiently by local government. The subject property, again, is approximately 5,200 acres. And the minimum district size for rural residential 2 is 15 acres, and the minimum lot size is 5. Public comment. Development Department notified 18 property owners, and as of tonight's meeting, we have received no comments. Staff proposes a motion and vote by the Planning Commission to recommend approval of this agenda item, including the findings of fact that were in your staff report and the meeting tonight. And with that, I would answer any questions.
Questions for staff?
Going east, does that go all the way to the city of Casper border to the landfill?
This is, the subject property is actually north of the landfill and runs, hang on.
North of what the city already owns? Okay.
Yeah, so the blue area is the City of Casper's current boundary.
I think the landfill is like 1,600 acres or something like that, the Balefield boundaries. So that's what the boundary is, right? The blue to the subject area?
That is correct.
So they border them on the south?
The subject property's southern boundary borders the northern portion of the landfill.
The city of Casper.
Yes.
Questions for staff? So I did put a pen to paper just a bit and give somebody an idea what, or maybe give us an idea of what we're talking about. 2,600 acres, if they could, or 5,200 acres, if there was a plan to have 2-acre lots, that's 2,600 lots. Is it minimum 5? I read 2.
The minimum for this zone change to rural residential is 5 acres.
Okay, all right, it's 1,000. So we're talking, there could be 3,000 people living out there at 2.5 people per lot. So it's a big deal. It's interesting, so if this were to be approved and then move toward a subdivision application being submitted, the City of Casper would have the first dibs to say, no, this is not going to be a county subdivision, this is going to be a city subdivision, correct?
Currently, the state statute states that we have to notify any municipality within a mile of the subdivision. I suppose the City of Casper could work out something with the subdivision to pull it in, just like we saw for Robertson Road, where there was 2 subdivisions developed out there, and the city requested one of those, and then the town of Mills requested one of those, and so they moved to those jurisdictions. At this point, after talking with the City of Casper, I have not received any information that would be something that they would go for moving forward.
Okay. One concern I noted was in the application, where it stated that water was going to be individual wells. And I think if this moves forward, I believe that we need to make sure that that's understood, that chances of finding water out here, and even if you do find it, water that's suitable for drinking, is very slim. And I think we'd be doing a disservice to the public to assume groundwater wells are a feasible option for water supply here. So right now, we got the B.B. Brooks with 35, 40 acre and larger tracts and urban ag, and I think that's, you know, if you want to haul your water up there for your animal or to live, fine for 40 acres. But when we start making smaller lots, I think we're doing a disservice to assume that you're going to have a bunch of people up there, maybe 3,000 people hauling water. So, thank you.
I think most of them B.B. Brooks subdivision out there have wells. I don't know what I think they have wells on most of them 40-acre lots.
Mr. Chairman, the B.B. Brooks does utilize wells in their subdivision. I would also like to note that with the zone change application, we don't really review the water, but going forward, if they came forward and proposed a subdivision that was 6 lots or more, they are required to do the water and sewer studies through DEQ and submit all of those studies by an engineer and get a non-adverse recommendation. So that would be addressed at that time.
And I guess a further concern I would have it with a potential development of that size, and given the county's rules and regulations as we have them now, I mean, I'm almost encouraging the city to get involved, because you got issues of parks and things like that that we don't necessarily address, and we're talking about a large development literally adjacent to the city of Casper. So parks, schools, fire, police, all those public services that would typically go along with having a large influx of residential properties. So, any further discussion? Thank you. All right. Call the public hearing open for consideration of zone change 21-005, and that's request to change the zoning district classification from urban ag to rural residential 2, and for lack of a better term, just calling it the B.B. Brooks area. So, Mr. Williams, you want to come visit with us? All those in favor?
Matt Williams, WLC, representing the owner tonight, 200 Pronghorn. I don't have much to present, but I just want to give you guys an opportunity to ask any questions, if there aren't any, so.
If approved, are you at liberty to tell you, reading the letter would indicate that something's ready to happen here soon?
Sure, I can share with you, I guess, what I know at this point. The owner is looking at potential phases in there, and just based on kind of how topography and existing easements and whatnot, I mean, it would be kind of 5 to 7-ish acres lots. Potentially, I think the first one we have submitted is about 120 lots, but literally everything is hinged on the cost and availability of power getting in there right now. So that's kind of where everything sits right now, is the feasibility to get power in there at kind of whatever cost the owner's anticipating. So if that works out well, then yeah, the next step would be moving forward with the Chapter 23 and subdivision. So, but that's kind of where it sits right now. There's a lot hinging on the cost of getting power in there.
Have you had discussions with the city of Casper
In regards to,
in regards to the potential subdivision?
Yeah, I mean, I believe Ken talked with them, and I think even the owner visited with Craig. I mean, to the extent of this is what we wanted to do. And that's kind of where it ended, I think.
Okay.
Craig gave his blessing, but I mean, that's kind of where it ended.
I think that water's a big deal. Me personally.
Very big.
Yeah, I mean, the chapter 23 will be enormous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm just picturing all those people out there carrying water.
If that's the case, I don't know if that would, I imagine that would probably kill it.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah. Is there a county road that accesses?
There
that
isn't,
property?
what we would be.
Can you point to it on the map?
Sure.
Does it come off?
What we would be looking at for access-wise is coming in here off the new interchange, and then down this section line, crossing a little chunk of the state property right there, and then across that section.
So is that, have you already talked to that state property?
What's that?
Is the state aware of what your intention is there?
Not yet. I mean, we're literally in, I would say, a holding pattern to find out what the anticipated costs of the power are, so. But, I mean, it's the anticipated easement that we would need there is pretty minor. I mean, it's a few hundred feet. The owner has literally the rest of the property to gain access. So.
Anything else for Mr. Williams? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to? Tracy, you don't have anything to say, huh?
Chad, you asked a good question. I'm glad y'all have a sense of humor.
It's running thin here about this time of night. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing none, close the public hearing for the request for the zone change. Discussion amongst the commissioners.
I just had a question. You brought up the city of Casper, so do you have to approach them for them to take ownership, or can they just decide they want to do it? I had not really thought of that, or knew about it.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Mitchell, what you're referring to would be the annexation of this land into the city of Casper. And so the state statutes speak to that, and the city would have to go through annexation proceedings if they chose to bring that property into the city. And then there'd be some showings that they would have to make that they could provide water and sewer and other essential services. So, you know, I don't want to speculate as to what their position on that would be.
I do recall a number of years ago, 15 years ago, I bet, when B.B. Brooks first opened up the commercial sale of 35-acre and larger lots for however many, they did come to the city of Casper and request annexation of a huge part of that, if not all of it, and the city denied it. But that was larger lots. I'm wondering now with smaller lots if maybe that position changes, but I guess that's not for us to speculate.
The only thing I could see the city having interest in is to sell them water, because they got water lines out that way.
All right, so Chair would entertain a motion for consideration.
I would motion to approve ZZ 21-005, request to change zoning district classification from urban agriculture to rural residential 2, and attach findings as a statement of fact.
Is there a second?
A second.
Second, Mr. Grant. Any further discussion? All those in favor, call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The zoning change application is approved for recommended to pass by the county commissioners. Thank you. Okay, last part of our meeting, public comment. Is there any public comment anyone wishes to bring forward?
Chad, you got to take Matt off the hook. He makes every motion that comes up on him, so that's good. You guys got a good group here now. Off camera, off record, you can tell, Hal can tell you how we got acquainted to start with. And he's a good man. He takes good butt to him pretty good. On him, and he doesn't carry a vendetta thereafter. So that was a long time ago, wasn't it? Over the trees up there on Tower Hill, out years ago. You probably don't remember.
I don't even remember, Tracy. to
I
be
was on
honest
the
with you.
Parks Board, but a couple of things here. I owe you guys an explanation. I got a call from Jason Gutierrez on the morning of the hearing way back in February. I didn't even know anything about Mountain Acre subdivision. I didn't have a clue on him. So he briefed me up, and I thought it was kind of strange. He calls me. He got me out of bed, to be quite honest with you. And I sleep late, but you don't get too many calls from my county, our planning commission member, or even anybody from the county at that early in the morning. But he says, "Oh, I'm surprised." He says, "You guys are fixing to lose a county road up there." He says, "You know anything about Jackson Canyon Road?" I said, "Yeah, I sure do." I said, when that got shut down, I didn't have a clue who it was that even shut it down. Somebody made a big issue out of our Casper Mountain Landowners Association Facebook site, and a gentleman that's a real public access advocate, in fact, the cousin to Bob Bailey, come out of the woodwork, and he posted part of the Jackson Canyon Road survey on that. It just evolved from there. But Jason, I think the reason he called me, said, "You better be there tonight." So that's how I surfaced on it. And then I hadn't seen the Platt, the agenda, or anything else. And Jackson Canyon Road wasn't there, and you guys remember that evening, those of you were on the Planning Commission at that time. So it got put on there. It's a good thing. On it, and I think Jason knew full well of my background and putting, but way back when we put the snowmobile trail system together. And there's the original map, but I laid that out when I was on the Park Board. I got drafted, I didn't ask for the thing, and it went right through that road right away. And I was told by the late Bob Adams back then that ran the Parks Department that was a county road right away, and I never thought much about it. But that was the reason it ended up there. But just last week, John's got listed on here, Bryson, and I've driven him crazy and back and forth, but he's got the snowmobile trail marked going across the parcel that Lever just sold, and the state trails got a call last week and said that trail's not going to be in there longer. So where we're at, all this consternation has created a win-win-win situation for everybody. The snowmobile trail will be able to go down the relocated Jackson Canyon Road, whether they plot or not. There's a resolution that I got Rick Tempest to pass years ago when he was in the legislature. The commissioners can pass a resolution to allow snowmobiling on a designated our county roadway. So that'll take care of that problem and accommodate all the people over on the west end of the mountain. That was my biggest thing. I came, we put that on the plat. It got to the commissioners, and it got booted back. Had everything got put on there the way it was supposed to be on it, and bless Trish's heart over here, she gets caught in the crossfire on them. But somebody come down here in 2018 and talked to somebody in the planning department and said, "Can this happen?" I think it was Margot Spurrier, who lives over adjacent to Regal Road, and nothing happened. And that was relative to both sections of the road getting shut down. So there's a bigger issue, a lot bigger, dragging the sleigh further to the west, where Jackson Canyon Road's been shut off. And this is all wrong on them. So that turned a couple of us, Andrew Snyder and myself, into being real badgers, and we've driven poor old Eric and Trish up the wall, I know, on them. But the win-win, we've got a public road, county road. Now, you've taken care of where the county doesn't have to take care of it. on them. So the big issue too was, I brought to the attention was the two easements across Lever and across Reeds, straight up. But that was a challenge that Lever gave me when I found an easement from Lever to Lever across that property, and I don't think Mr. White even knows that exists. That's why I didn't bring it up tonight, okay? And that's who ended up with the Lever parcel at that particular one on them. But with that, Eric, do you have the easement numbers you were referencing to as far as Lever and Reed? Can you provide those to me?
Mr. Chairman, those are the proposed easements, so they have not yet been recorded.
That they've been proposed?
Yes, they've been executed, they have not been recorded.
That's good. So, and Eric, you feel comfortable that it's going to happen?
I would think so, yeah. I mean, that's going to be a condition of the approval, so.
Fantastic. That lays my mind at ease, because I just happen to have both the easements from Lever to Lever and what the Reed family had dedicated before for the road easements going across Simple and Major Subdivision to the east, and they don't include anything to hook back up to what is called KTW Road on the south. But that was Worthington, Linhart, and Carpenter put that on there, and it's incorrect. It's actually Crooked Pine Trail, so that cleans that one up. We got that, we got that. We talked about that not being there. Bear with me, the two segments. County, we want to pick that one up. Took care of that. You suggested the power line and a couple of things back, not on Mountain Acre Subdivision. All you got to do is call old Bryson and just tell him to put the power line down that road. It should be identified. If we're going to do it for one, we got to be consistent for all. And there's a power line that goes right down Jackson Canyon Road, and I already told you the history of that. So let's just get it on there. The BLM, the fire department, your question there. They walked it in the dead of winter when the snow was about 4 foot deep, so all the boulders were covered over, and they haven't been back since, okay? So they'll get the boulders out of the road. Mr. Campbell's on top of that. He's the one that walked me over there last week and showed me all that. So the BLM, Eric, Carla Gallegos, I encourage you to give her a call. It's a moot point at this point, but I'll get a copy of that easement, or try to. Get the information out of the BLM, almost impossible. But, I met with those people. They called me on it, and they were aware of what's happening. We went up and walked the perimeter of that property. They were not happy campers when they found one of the ropes on the BLM's land on them. So she called it an easement. It's a 30-year renewable, whatever it is. Call it a license, call it an easement. If we go back and look at that, I'm just saying, if some people are required to put that down, put the number, just like they put the Bernadette Reeds for the hookup of the new road on Archery Range Road. It should be consistent across the board. I've learned a lot in this process, and I know the rest of us have too. So I'm not that bad a guy. I sent Bryson, and Eric, I need to send it to you too. I got the archive book. I'm going to send it to you tomorrow. It's over 1,000 pages. It was archived in 1965 for all the county roads that were from 1911 forward. I think that's a good document to have on it, because I learned a whole lot. That status report they have out at the BLM, for some reason, they got that under lock and key and they won't let anybody look at it. But I have an insider out there, and I was able to get what I need on them. So that's the other thing. I called John. I said, you need to get a hold of Judy Reed. I'm not the badass I made him out to be, but people were upset with me, and they'll always be upset with me, but so be it. I said, John, have Camille, not John, but have Camille reach out to Judy Reed. I'm sure she'll accommodate the easement. So I'm glad to hear that she's committed to do that, and I'm happy to hear that Lever is committed to do too, because Lever challenged me to help get access further south where K2 Road and Jackson Canyon Road actually swing and make the corner up past the tower and head west. So being the decent fellow I am, I got them all working together, and we got 2 sections now dedicated to public use. So one last thing. Lever just sold another property that was abutting to that. I'm hoping that he made another the day before like he did when he sold the property to the Whites, run down and record a lever-to-lever easement so we can get another piece connected. And I'm pretty sure I can get the Van Horns convinced to dedicate their easements, which they thought they had already done years ago, to the public. And that'll get us all the way to Hummingbird Hollow with a public road right away. Does that make sense? So I'm not the bad guy. You know, you try to facilitate and help, but you take a lot of licks. Sometimes to get where you need to go, you got to create a little controversy. So, that's it.
Tracy, I for one admire
What's-
the passion you have for Casper Mountain. You're always a proponent of the area, and
I tell you what, Paul Manley, anybody remember Paul Manley?
I don't.
That was Star Wallow Subdivision, him and Tom Bechtel and the Hazelton family. But my father and Paul Manley worked for Ernest Wilkerson, going back to after World War II on it, and that was Wyoming Automotive turned into Wyoming Hardware and stuff. But my dad was transferred by Ernest Wilkerson, who had inherited Wyoming Automotive from his father, in 1958 to come over here. And Manley, three of my brothers and I were driving my mother nuts and said, "You guys need to come up here and spend the whole summer at Limmer's cabin." And I was only 8 years old. But he told me story after story after story of the history up there. But Bob Adams, I mentioned earlier, you talk about somebody that knew the history up there. And he was our 8th grade English teacher. On it, and all he'd do is take and what do you call it when you break down the sentence and brackets and all that, or he'd tell stories about Casper Mountain. So I learned all that. And then I got drafted at the Parks Board by that contingent of people. And Tom Bechtel came to me. He was a historian too, and they gave me all the records and said, "Tracy, we're aging out. You got to step up." So I stepped up. And the more I got into it, I found a lot of newspaper archive archives and so forth. But, and back to the land plan, we got to enforce those policies. It's just that simple. They're on there. We can flim-flam that plan to death. But there was a lot of money and a lot of good people's time. If you open up and see who the players were in that, it's like a who's who. But thanks for the time.
Yeah, thanks for
And
keeping
Eric-
us on our toes.
Eric, I'm sorry I've created you in grief. Trish, the same as well. And we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not totally full of BS, okay? I'll leave it at that.
Thank you again. Anything else? We had, yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I had spoken with the chairman and with Trish, and, it came to kind of my attention that we've got some new members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I don't think we've done a very good job of kind of onboarding you all. And so what I had proposed is prior to next month's Planning and Zoning meeting, maybe meeting a little bit early, 4 o'clock or 4:30, with the idea that we could kind of give Planning and Zoning 101, just talk about kind of, the statutory framework behind it, some parliamentary procedure, just kind of go over some basic process stuff, and then, just answer any questions. I wouldn't see it as a, one-time end-all, be-all, thing, but just to kind of give you guys some comfort and a starting point. So I just wanted to bring that up and see if you're amenable to that, and if that would work next month.
So, I have the next planning and zoning meeting August 10th. Does that sound right?
So 4:30 instead of 5:30?
I was thinking, Mr. Chairman, I was thinking maybe 4 o'clock, and we can go for an hour, so take a small break before we start the formal meeting, if that works.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Not a problem. We probably should have done this sooner, but life gets in the way.
So I assume there'll be an email with details
Okay.
sent to us.
Yeah, and certainly if you have any questions or issues that you want us to cover, feel free to email me as well, and we can work it in, so.
Thank you. Is there anything that we need to discuss with the rewrite with Logan Simpson?
Mr. Chairman, so we are moving forward with a steering committee meeting next week. Melissa Ruth with Logan Simpson will be back in town, so we are getting together one more time this month to go over some additional items that we had. We didn't have enough time to fully review. Then we will be moving on to another survey for the public, kind of singling down some of the questions that we have on what the public wants to see. After that, we will start with the first module and getting that ready to move forward for your review.
Great. Okay. Anything else? Thank you guys for sitting through all this. This was
A lot shorter than last month.
actually wasn't as long as I was thinking it might be. Have a good night. Oh, meeting adjourned. 8:30. Eric, thanks for being here.